Have you heard about degrowth? I really can't stand this approach to climate change. Degrowthers, A, dismiss the possibility that policies and technology can help reduce emissions while enabling continued economic growth, and B, they argue the global economy must be scaled down. For example, in 2019, Greta Thunberg called continued economic growth a fairy tale.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth.
But she was dead wrong about this, because not only is continued economic growth real and possible and sustainable, but it will also be good for the environment. In this video, we'll demonstrate that reality in 3 ways. But first, a quick roadmap. We're going to argue that, as the Eco-Modernist Manifesto concluded in 2015, humans can and should use our increasing economic and technological power to make life better for people, stabilize the climate, and protect the natural world. Sound too good to be true? It's not. Moreover, urbanization and intensified agricultural production all have demonstrated the ability to reduce human demands on the environment and make life better for us and our non-human friends. The simple fact is, countries throughout the world are seeing concurrent economic growth with a reduction in CO2 emissions. And that trend is not only sustainable, it's a lead pipe lock if politicians and their policies don't mess with it. And here's reason number 1. Economic growth means greater efficiency in technology. Sometimes people frame it like this. Businesses don't care how much waste they create or pollution they spew. They just want to make as much money as possible. That's only half the story, though. Yes, businesses want to make as much money as possible, but increasing their revenue is only one way they can do that. Another way, of course, is that they can reduce the amount of resources they expend. In a competitive and free market economy, businesses are actually incentivized to deliver products to consumers as efficiently as possible. That is, by using as few resources as they can. That's how they maximize profit. In How Innovation Works, author Matt Ridley wrote, "It will always be possible to raise living standards further by reducing the amount of a resource used to manufacture a given product. Therefore, growth is indefinitely sustainable." To me, this example hammers it home. When the aluminum can first appeared in 1959, it weighed about 3 ounces. Today, a standard aluminum can weighs less than half an ounce. Now, in the short term, it might seem like having, say, 3 bakeries on the same city block is wasteful. Wouldn't one be enough? But because those bakeries have to compete with each other, they'll constantly look for ways, yes, to sell more bread, but also to reduce how much effort, money, and resources go into baking their breads. That competitive process makes it far more likely that one of them might develop a groundbreaking new baking method, or that one of them will try transporting their dough with electric vehicles to save a few bucks. If the new methods actually save money, the other bakeries will have to adapt or risk going out of business. So really, the more businesses we have, that is, the more the economy grows, so too will competition and innovation grow. And in the long run, that'll work to all of our best interests, because it's in all of our best interests to be as efficient as possible and to waste as little as possible. The data bears it out. In 2015, the United States was using 15% less steel, 32% less aluminum, and 40% less copper compared to their peak use, even with a growing population. Even with a growing population, American farms are using 25% less fertilizer and 22% less water, yet produce more food thanks to the more targeted use of fertilizers and irrigation. So we've learned that economic growth leads to greater efficiency, which is key because, number 2, economic growth is driving people and resources to cities. Notice here how the number of people living in urban areas is growing while the number of people living in rural areas has stagnated. And it's the growing economy of cities, restaurants and shops and businesses opening that provides jobs in cities and attracts people to them. Why is that a good thing? Cities are more efficient and better for the environment than rural areas. Obviously, they're more densely populated, which allows for a more efficient use of resources and a reduction of carbon footprint. To give just a quick example, in a city, public transportation biking, and walking are realistic and convenient options for people. Not so much out in the country. Other examples. By living near one another, city dwellers can share energy and water. Cities are also centers of innovation. They bring people with diverse skills and ideas together who then find it easier to collaborate and cooperate on new projects and ideas. And of course, to a certain extent, they have to compete with each other, which spurs innovation for the reasons we talked about earlier. So cities are the key to innovation, and economic growth is the key to cities. We have to allow cities to continue to grow. And in the short term, yeah, that's going to mean having to tolerate some grit and grime in cities, some smokestacks and population. But let's also appreciate the long-run truth that the mass migration to cities will lead to a healthier planet, provided we allow the free market to determine urban planning policies, as we discussed in our video on NIMBYism and gentrification. Finally, reason number 3, growth leads to wealth, which leads to greater care for the environment. As we've shown, migration to cities is the natural result of the growth in jobs and opportunities and innovation in urban areas. That is, an increase in wealth. But for number 3 here, let's take it one step further. What effect does wealth have on the environment? Contrary to popular belief, as people get wealthier, they actually start to care more about their environment. Let's quickly reason through this, and then we'll get to the nitty-gritty. Say you're in sub-Saharan Africa. You survive on $1 per day. Do you care one iota about the carbon footprint of the van you hitch a ride to town in to buy a few eggs? Now say you're in a poor rural area outside a small American town. Your basic needs are met, but it's a constant battle. Are you sitting there thinking, I really should get my car's emissions checked? Finally, say you're an upper middle class young urban professional. You hit the gym in the evenings and play pickleball on the weekends. You have time and energy to care about your environmental footprint. It's simple. Growth leads to wealth, which leads to care for the environment. As for the nitty-gritty, people with disposable income can afford cleaner, more energy-efficient technologies like solar panels and electric cars. People who aren't struggling just to get by have time and energy for greater environmental awareness. They're more likely to support environmentally friendly policies and invest in companies and educational and research initiatives targeting sustainability. People with the means to do so are more likely to buy sustainable products and services. If you're struggling to put food on the table, you don't care whether your beef is grass-fed, but if you can afford grass-fed beef, it's a different story. And people who don't have to work 16-hour days to feed their families are going to have more leisure time, and so will be more likely to care about access to green spaces like parks and forests, which could help mitigate climate change. So, to summarize, degrowth is not only not the answer to climate change, it would make the problem worse. Growth, economic growth, population growth, the growth of cities, is the answer. Growth leads to greater technological efficiency, it drives people towards cities, which drives innovation, and it leads to increased wealth and leisure time, which allows people to really care about the environment they live in, instead of just trying to get by.